The Spark File podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people clarify and accomplish their creative goals.
Know that just by listening to this podcast, you are joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
But, you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
Well, a Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations. Every episode, we're going to reach into our Spark Files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take some of those sparks of inspiration and make something of your own. So without further ado, let's open up
The
Spark File. Hi, Laura Cavian.
Hello, Susie B. How you doing?
I am doing great because it is the most beautiful, crisp fall day.
Ugh.
We are in prime leaf season. It is stunning. How about you?
Extraordinary. I happen to be in the beautiful state of Tennessee at this moment, and also surrounded by exquisite trees of all different colors, and it is extraordinary. It makes my heart happy.
It's like living in a painting. It's crazy.
It's crazy, and aren't we lucky?
We are lucky for so many reasons, including today's podcast episode, which is like a cornucopia of sparks and gems and gifts and stories.
It sure is. We're going to fill up our Spark Files with all these little gems. And also, just remember, this was all recorded in a similar setting up in Canada in the fall at Saunders Farm. And once again, surrounded by glorious trees and beautiful nature and fresh, crisp air and apple cider and a fire crackling.
Delicious
it's just
food. Oh yeah, the best. So as with our prior SparkFest episode, you're going to hear that we're on location. We're sitting beside a huge hearth, a crackling fire, and you'll hear that in the recording. We're not in a studio. We're definitely on location. Sometimes our laughter can overwhelm the little baby microphone who is doing its best. But I think it adds to the charm.
It adds to the charm. And we do thank that microphone. We really did work it. We worked it hard that day.
Took it to the limit. Bless little microphone.
And it's really fun given what day it is today. I believe it's the day before Halloween. And in this episode, many, many of our folks went and found spooky sparks. They had gone to Fright Night at Saunders Farm the night before, and were all a little bit adrenal, jacked up from the Fright Night, and they were brave enough to do some spooky sparks. So we might present them the day before Halloween.
We've got some spooky sparks. We've got some autumnal sparks. Laura,
yes.
I haven't told you yet, but in our house, we've been challenging ourselves and watching movies that are a little on the scarier side in the evening.
How interesting. I'm so curious to know the rationale. Did you feel like I must acquire better skills at watching scary stuff?
No, I think it was more like we are watching classic movies. We're watching just great movies, and sometimes great movies are a little on the scarier side of Sears. So last night we watched Poltergeist.
Oh, wow. 80s. And 80s. I thought you were talking even more classic. Poltergeist. Oof. I think what's even scarier about that movie is reading about the stuff that happened to people who worked on
Oh,
that movie.
the worst.
It's the worst. It's all
Yeah.
very scary.
Yeah. It is scary.
Wow.
The night before that, we watched The Others with Nicole Kidman, which I think is one of her greatest films. Her performance in The Others is phenomenal. But there's nothing like a really, really excellent scary movie. And I just want to qualify all of this by saying some of you are listening and you're like, girl, Poltergeist and The Others are not scary. To me, they are scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think scary is on a scale. It's a moving
sliding scale of
right?
scary.
It's a sliding scale, and both of us are way down here.
way. But anyway, put that in your Spark file and smoke it. It's a great time of year for some spookiness, which is a great segue into this episode.
Absolutely.
Enjoy some of these autumnal and spooky sparks. And first up, we're going to hear from Spark Scribe Jill Dryer, our beloved artist in residence. Jill, take it away. We got Jill motherfucking Dryer, who some of you may know as our Spark Scribe.
That is correct.
If you enjoy any of the illustrations that you see on our social media, on our website, that's all Jill motherfucking Dryer.
I was just enjoying that we can say Jill motherfucking Dryer because it's our podcast.
We're grown-ass adults.
Decided we can.
Yeah, we can do that.
Hi, Jill.
But enough of us. Jill, what you got for us?
Well, I'm Jill, as you heard, motherfucking Dryer, and I'm she, her, and I'm super happy to be here. When I went walking on the farm today, I started looking at all the doorways, and I ended up on a pirate ship where there were portals, and I was really fascinated by all the different vantage points on the pirate ship because there's not only portals that you typically only see from the inside out and not the other way. There's the crow's nest, there's walking the plank, which maybe is like looking at risks and things like that. But I felt like I got stuck on portals because typically those windows are only a one-way thing. And I feel like it's really important in life to go outside the expected window or doorway or portal. And it led me to a dream that I was going to share with you because it was relevant to this whole portal conversation and my encouraging you guys to look beyond. I had a dream many years ago that 3 hummingbirds came to outside the window where I was sitting. And I knew that they wanted me to come outside the window. And I had always had windows in my dreams, but I had never gone outside. And this dream, I decided I'm going. So I go outside the window. And just as I get beyond the glass, I see some fog up ahead, and there's a person in the distance, and I hear this man say, "Jill, is that you?" And there's this man that I haven't seen for 10 plus years. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we're standing there in the dream like, wow, this is so crazy. And he's wearing this white expedition suit and he's going to climb this mountain and his crew is waiting for him. And I'm like, well, it was so great to see you. You look amazing. And so Dan walks off and meets up with the crew and they're about halfway up the mountain. And I'm just watching and just marveling at how healthy he looks. And then he comes back down and he hands me a glove. And he said, would you mind giving this to Angie, who's his wife? And I said, well, of course, Dan. And then Dan went back up the mountain, climbed all the way to the top of the summit. There's the flag up there, and he waves at me as they plant the flag. And then he turns into this gorgeous rainbow bird and flies off. And in that moment, I turned to the hummingbirds, and I was like, he's crossed over, right? And they nod, and then I woke up. And it was a life-changing dream for me because the fact that I also went outside the window when I never would have otherwise thought that you could. I wanted to share it because I thought it was so interesting. The vantage point and the extraordinary payoff of going beyond the window was unreal. The gorgeousness, and I know it was full of beauty and sadness, this moment that I saw. He really did pass, and I didn't know that he was ill. That later turned into a really beautiful connection with his wife. I just encourage everyone to think about those just portals that they may come across where they're looking out and wondering if you should go beyond. And I feel like You have to, because as artists and all of us here at the Spark File, we're all creative people, and you can't be visionary if you stay inside. You have to go out, and sometimes it's rocky waters and it's crazy, but you got to do it because there's beauty everywhere, and it's extraordinary.
Jill,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
Kevin Weinhold.
Hey.
Welcome to the hot seat.
We've got
And
Kevin.
snuggle up.
We've got Kevin Weinbold, who this year is serving as the Spark File team captain, and it's an honor just to be nominated. Kevin, what you have a Spark File? First of all, how do you identify creatively?
I identify as a pianist, musical director, and entertainer.
Great. How did you rate my teaching of the Spark File sting?
Flawless.
Thank you. I was fishing. You have a spark for us?
I do.
Great.
So for those of you listening and not with us at SparkFest, tomorrow evening we have the opportunity to experience what is known as Fright Fest here at Saunders Farm. And some people would call it a privilege. Some people call it terrifying. I have never done a haunted house, never wanted to do a haunted house. And so when I found out that we had this mission to explore the farm, I decided I'm going to walk through a haunted house during the daylight.
Yes.
To make it less scary.
Yes.
Angela Grant
Yes.
Saunders said, she told me the most terrifying one last night, not knowing this plan. So I was like, I'm going to walk through the most terrifying one so I know
Yes.
which way to turn and I won't be scared. And it was like a cheat.
Okay.
You know, I was like,
Yeah.
I'll know, like,
Yeah.
I memorized in the Hall of Mirrors which way to go. So,
Yes.
you know,
Oh
I had this
my
plan.
God.
So that wasn't part of my spark. However, that was just an intro. But then,
Just leading in.
but then while I was there, it became my spark because as I was walking through, and even in the daylight, I was getting scared. And I had the thought, I was like, why do people like this?
Yeah.
And that was my spark. And so I sat next to this scary clown and started Googling why
You were like,
people-
scary clown, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I asked why people enjoy
Yes.
being afraid.
Yes.
And it led me to an article about obviously the dopamine
Yes.
release. And
Yes.
it's not typically the scare, but it's the release
That's right.
Of
from
it
the scare
That's right.
that gives us that.
Yes.
And then it led me to a second article where they put participants in a haunted house in different numbers of groups of their friends and had all sorts of monitors to measure brain waves and physiology, all of that. And they found that the more friends you were with, the more arousal you experienced. And the way they worded it was, this reflects fear contagion. If your friends are around, your body picks up on their signals and has a higher level of arousal, even in the
Yes.
absence of specific scares.
Yes.
So you're actually feeling more fear
You're pumping
when you're with
yourself
your friends.
up.
because-
Interesting.
Yes.
You would think that the reverse would be
Right.
true because you're like safety in numbers.
Yeah, but then it's like, if I'm
Yeah.
with you and you're scared, I'm scared
Yes.
for you as someone I care about.
This is a group of empaths who's going
Absolutely.
to pick up on every feeling
Yes.
of someone else. So imagine the amplification.
Yes. And that
Oh my
then,
God.
combining the articles, I was like, oh, that's interesting. People enjoy fear because of the release of it.
Right,
And we
yes.
experience more fear in groups, especially with friends, which then led me to think of the Spark File, where we're always talking about facing our fear.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm the kind of person who typically, when I need to face a fear, I do it in private. As I'm admitting I was going to walk through this haunted house alone, I was like, people don't need to see me react.
Yes.
I will silently navigate this.
Yes.
But when you face your fears with a group of people that you care about, you also experience more release and more dopamine. So facing your fears in a group is scientifically proven to give you a bigger release.
This is the best commercial for the
This
Spark
is-
Kevin,
So-
that is a spectacular spark
So great.
I have
Thank
so
you
many
so
follow-up
much.
questions
We've got so much to talk
about the haunted house of it all.
Yes,
I'm just really taken by the idea of sort of the metaphor of facing fears during the daytime. Like
Mhm.
that, there's something about
in
that
the light.
that is delicious and still somehow scary to me.
I just sent you something on Instagram last night, Suze, when I should have been sleeping, but I sent you something. It's an interview with the screenwriter Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how, and again, it goes back to the dopamine, but how for him, laughter and horror, those two genres, which most people are like, no, it's either a comedy or it's a horror. It can't be both. And he's like, oh, no. These are the same because it is that release. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, we have a lot. We'll be circling back on this.
So good. Kevin Weinbold. So good. Sarah Lupano, welcome to the hot seat. Will you tell the people how you identify creatively?
I think I identify as a storyteller and a documentary photographer.
Love that. Love that. You got a spark for us?
I do. And Kevin Weinbold and I were on the very same wavelength.
All right.
Nice.
But I'm going to take you with my first spark of a question of why? Where did they start and when did they start?
Haunted houses.
Haunted houses.
Shut the fuck up. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So let me take you to the 19th century in London.
Oh God,
Sarah! God damn it!
Oh my
this
God.
This is great.
This
spark.
is one way we could handle haunted houses. The history of them. Yes.
Do you know? I think you may.
Yes.
I may have said this in your presence before, but I can't watch scary movies. But I read the Wikipedia synopsis of a scary movie. I'll look at the tile on, like on a streaming service, and I'll be like, "Oh, that looks interesting," and I'll Wikipedia the plot synopsis and be like, "I'm good. I'm all good.
I'm good." Was that?
Yeah. Or I'll have Tom Schulteis relay talk me through the plot.
Which I'm always amazed by. Yeah, because I don't like them at all, and I'm like, I also don't want to know. I don't want to know what crazy idea someone has come up with. To terrify me.
And
sorry,
Sarah.
Angela,
Sorry to interrupt. So I did this recently. I read the Wiki. I was so curious what all the hubbub was about. So I read the Wikipedia entry for Midsommar. Fuck that shit. Fuck it. No. I still am thinking about the Wikipedia entry.
That's right.
In the room, raise your hand if you've seen Midsommar. Fuck you and fuck that shit. No. I can't even tell you what I'm still thinking about from the Wikipedia entry.
Okay, listen, one more sidebar, and then we're going to totally, what I'm crazed about is that it used to be like when you went to the movies, like the trailers were mild.
Oh,
and now, they're putting things, they have
jump scares
things into my eyeballs that I'm like, I didn't come for that. I came for Indiana Jones, and you just gave me some smiling psychopath.
When I see that red screen, the red trailer screen, I'm like, fuck you, fuck that. And I just,
no,
because I know what's coming. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Sarah, you were saying?
So
tell us all about it.
19th century England, in London specifically, a series of illusions and attractions introduced to the public new forms of gruesome entertainment.
19th century is...
You got this. You got this.
I don't know if is it the 1800s?
It is. Yes. It is.
Time is a construct.
But you nailed it, Susan.
The first, I don't know if it's the first, but it's the first name that I came across in my very short readings. 1802, Marie Toussaint.
A lady is behind all this?
Yeah. Madame Toussaint.
Wow.
Correct.
Like the wax museum.
Correct.
Got it.
She scandalized British audiences with an exhibition of sculptures of decapitated French figures.
Wow.
Fuck that.
Wow.
So that included King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. In fact, her job was to create the death masks of the French Revolution's guillotine victims.
Oh my God.
Oh, for real.
That was for her day
So
job.
the head goes in the basket and she's like, I'll take that.
How do you make a mask?
And that's her
because
job.
I think I should ask my 14-year-old historian, but I think there's a reason they have death masks.
Sarah's referring to her son, not that she keeps a 14-year-old historian. Just want to clarify that.
In fact, I'm Marie Toussaint.
You were saying, I'm sorry. We're very chatty. Sorry.
And so from that exhibition, she called that the Chamber of Horrors, which is still the name of the museum that we see today around Paris. So that's how this started. But then that grew at the turn of the century. Things became more macabre in their theme. So in Paris, then we moved to Paris And there's this theater called the Grand Guignol.
Guignol, I think.
And that theater was always notorious for its onstage depictions of graphic dismemberment. And the director, Max, boasted often that he judged each performance he did by the number of people who passed out shocked in the audience.
Fuck Max and fuck Max.
That's a hard pass.
And then in 1915, there was an English fairground that debuted one of the very first ghost houses, an early commercial horror attraction.
Now we're getting into it.
And public appetite began to pick up for horror.
Like somebody figured out people will pay good money to scare the shit out of themselves.
That's right.
Amazing.
Wow.
And then that led me into the question that Kevin had, as into why the fuck do we want to do that to ourselves?
We do it by choice.
And I mean, Kevin did a beautiful depiction
and we
of it.
get to
and
that,
it ignites
that dopamine release.
The dopamine,
Yeah.
it ignites receptors in our brains, our audio, our visual. And then that led me to, why do I only want to listen to scary podcasts? And that often, they say, draws on our human instinct of wanting to know how we can keep ourselves safe.
Yes.
The who, what, where,
the
when.
true crime of it all.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that's why, we're still the same as we were in the 18th, 19th centuries.
Sarah Lapano.
Wow.
That
just like
is a great
scaring
spark.
ourselves to death makes us feel more alive, I think. Isn't that weird? Thank you for that walk down history lane.
Welcome.
I love that.
If you ever need to be on a podcast, you can come be on our podcast.
That's right.
Anytime.
We're ready to
Anytime.
learn
Anytime.
things.
All right.
Awesome.
That was awesome. Friends, it's the aforementioned Chris Pappas. Chris, tell the people how you identify creatively.
It's Chris Pappas. I identify as a podcaster, storyteller, travel director, cat herder. So it's like,
Holy crap.
like
That's
what
some
I do.
skills.
We workshopped that jerk earlier today.
Spark it up. We are so ready for your spark.
I think my spark is like the goth cousin of Melissa's. So, yeah, I also ended up in the kind of backstage area of some of these haunts.
The haunts, okay.
My spark is entitled A Perfectly Reasonable Explanation. When I think back to the room that I grew up in, I can picture the closet, and at night I can picture
the ghost,
the man in a black hat that stood next to my closet.
Are you shitting?
And the man in the black hat has also appeared to me in a tent in Montana and in a hotel room in Paris.
In Ottawa? Paris.
The man in a black hat has been several things. A tree branch, a coat, and a curtain rod.
Yes.
Because our brain does not like empty spaces. So it fills in the gaps for us. So when we are seeing shadows, when we're seeing things, when we're walking around a haunted house, what is going on inside of our brains?
Oh my God.
So a couple of things. I didn't cite my sources. Austin hit me on that one. I was like, so y'all can just Google the things that I'm about to talk about. The big one being perpetual filling in. So this is like when
perpetual filling in.
So, you see this experiment where it's like, there's two lines, but your brain fills in the triangle, or it's a dotted circle, but your brain sees
or
the
missing
full
letters
circle.
in a word, and you're like, I still know what that word is.
Yeah.
Intentional blindness. So this is something that you might see in a magic show. It's something when your brain is not expecting something to happen, so you just don't see it. I saw this great show on Broadway a couple years ago where this magician told us at the beginning of the show, a gorilla is going to run across the stage, grab this banana, and then run back across, and you're not going to see it. And so they did this entire sequence. And
which is based on a big research experiment.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they did the sequence, and you look over, the banana's gone. He goes, you all missed the gorilla. So they did the sequence again. And sure enough, a gorilla walks across, a guy in a gorilla suit walks across stage, picks up the banana, walks off. And if you are not looking for it, you do not see it. So if something suddenly disappears, sometimes we don't blame the person who literally walked across the room who took it. You just say, that just disappeared.
Wait, Chris, can you say the two things again? The perpetual filling in, and the second one was?
intentional blindness.
Intentional blindness. Wow. Okay.
Is that like when, our nose is in our line of vision all the time?
Yeah.
All the time. And if you put your fingertip on your nose, you realize
Everyone's putting their fingertip
that
on their nose.
you realize, like, shut an eye, we erase it from our vision. And what is it called again?
Intentional blindness.
Intentional blindness.
Wow. Okay, but you want to tell us more, and we're just stuck on those two: perpetual filling in,
Like-
intentional blindness.
Yeah.
The last one I have here is pareidolia, which is the brain filtering out information that it deems unimportant. So the example they kind of give in these articles is when we're looking at clouds and we start to see shapes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're filtering out the kind of
Pareidolia.
What isn't useful,
pareidolia. Yeah.
and we're focusing on what we want.
But isn't it also like, I'm obsessed with this. Is this the one where you look at a electrical outlet and you see a face?
Yes.
Yes.
Clouds, the
Yeah.
Rorschach test.
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
These, and so I think it's just important to remember around spooky season that, those shadows you see in the corner, those bumps that you hear
Are indeed a man on a black hat.
most
Chris's
most
brain
likely
filled them in.
most likely
Wow.
have a reasonable explanation.
Chris
Likely.
All right. In the
Settle
hot
in.
seat, we've got Lisa Marie Newton. Lisa Marie Newton is, I would say, an OG sparkler,
Yeah.
as have
Holy
several
crap.
people who have come before.
That's right.
But how do you identify creatively?
I am an actor, singer, voiceover artist, and screenwriter.
Yeah,
baby.
You are. You have a spark for us today?
I do. As soon as Laura brought up that we had this homework assignment, I knew immediately what I wanted to do.
You're really selling SparkFest, by the way.
I know.
This homework
Amazing.
assignment.
I know homework.
Come to Canada. Get homework. Sorry, go ahead.
And the name of my spark is I Love a Labyrinth. And I have for years and decades loved labyrinths. And here at Saunders Farm, they have a series of mazes.
Yes.
That are called mazes, and they are actually mazes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between a maze and a labyrinth.
What?
Ooh.
What?
It's like an episode of Jerry Springer.
Where there was a difference.
No.
Oh.
Angela Grant
Okay.
Saunders and shot into the air.
What you got for us?
So a maze is usually what we think of and usually what we call it. And it is a place where you go in and you have to make choices, and there are obstacles. Obstacles usually being dead ends. So you might go the wrong way to try to get to your destination.
That's
In
a
a
maze.
maze.
That is a maze.
Okay. Lauren Susan
We're
are
tracking.
learning.
Yes. So it's, if you think about when you're a little kid and you would draw mazes and you would try to find your way through to the end,
Yeah.
but you would sometimes get stuck and have to
Yeah, like on the placemat at the
back.
Shoney's
Exactly.
with a crayon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Labyrinth, on the other hand,
Has David Bowie
and the Muppets.
the Muppets.
No, actually, a labyrinth, you cannot get lost. A labyrinth is something that, and these were also on the placemats, but you just keep following the path.
There's
And
no wrong turn.
There's no wrong turn. And the reason I love a labyrinth is because the metaphor for me is that you just keep following the path in front of you.
One foot in front of the other.
Sometimes you think you're really close to your destination. And if you keep following the path, you might end up all the way back out at the end. But if you keep following the path, you will end up exactly in the middle in your destination.
If you keep
Following
going.
one foot in front of the other and don't look and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
You just keep following the path in front of you. And I think for me as an artist, like that has been, now when I look back, it's easier to see when you look back,
Mhm.
but that's what we do is we follow what is in front of us. And eventually we get to a destination.
That is beautiful. I feel like my brain grew. So you're Angela Grant Saunders.
I am.
Would you tell us how you identify creatively?
I will say that comfortably now I state that I am a creative farmer.
Oh.
I'm just that.
Creative farmer.
I grow things, and they're not always plants.
Yes.
Sometimes when we describe the people who make up
baby.
the Spark file, we say we have farmers.
Yes. But now creative farmers.
Creative farmers.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
great.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Great description.
Get a spark for us?
I sure do.
Give it to us.
It's fall on the farm.
Yes, it is.
And for us and for many farms around North America and the UK and Europe, that means fall festival time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just harvest time. It's also an opportunity to have people come onto your farm. Hopefully they'll buy your vegetables that you've worked hard growing, but also you can treat them. And so I'm going to talk about fall foods. Fall foods on the farm.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So you might see these at state fairs, a lot of beautiful fall treats that you get at different state fairs. Or in Canada, we call them provincial fairs. No, we don't use that term at all. I'm lying. From our point of view here at the farm, when we started welcoming people onto Saunders Farm, we knew we had to have fun treats for people to eat. And this was a giant learning curve for us because we didn't have an expert in concession treats on our team. But we said, well, doggone it. If other people can learn it, we can learn it too. Here are some of the products that we've had at our farm that we've learned how to make over the years. A shiny red candy apple with a crunchy coating, which led to caramel apples, which you have to be really careful about because sometimes if you don't make the caramel exactly right to the correct temperature and consistency, it might fall off the apple. Or it might get so hard that you leave a tooth behind in it. And we don't like that.
That's the fear.
Yes. Then we got into fresh cut fries. And because we're in Canada, that led to poutine. What's poutine, you say?
That's right.
Because you've never read a food magazine or been to a great restaurant or come to a Canadian farm?
Don't shame people. Don't shame people.
I'm not shaming. I'm here to educate. Poutine is fresh cut fries with fresh squeaky cheese curds and hot gravy poured over
And
so
it
that
melts.
the cheese melts. Yeah. It's a beautiful fall treat.
It's good.
It's actually available year round. Then we can talk about kettle corn. A little bit spicy, not spicy, salty, a little bit sweet.
We'll clean that up in post. Yes.
And a whole lot of good. And then when we brought in fudge, I thought my brain would explode.
You're like, this is the peak.
It's the peak. We
Yeah.
have 20 varieties of fudge, and it's all
20?
just it's beautiful.
20.
Mhm.
Wow.
Top seller is
Hard to make?
Is it hard to make?
Yeah.
No.
Top
No.
seller is?
I think that it used to be chewy praline, but I'm pretty sure it's like chocolate peanut butter. It's like a
That's
Reese's
right.
peanut butter cup.
Wonderful.
But I'm going to tell you now about our new venture because
There's more.
there's
so you
more.
did not
And
peak?
you mentioned it in your intro. Can we talk about apple cider donuts?
Yes.
So right now we are perfecting our apple cider donuts. Last week we plugged in our Belshaw Mark 6 donut robot that can make 100.
I see a sponsor.
I shit you not. It can make 120 dozen donuts in an hour.
What?
Oh my God, their
What?
faces. Yeah, it's exciting. Here's the other thing you need to know. You need to wait for your shortening to melt and reach a temperature of 375 degrees. If it's too cold, your donut will be really greasy. We don't like that. We want a beautiful, cakey donut. The liquid in our donut is 100% Ontario apple cider.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh, delicious. So that apple flavor comes right through the vanilla cake donut.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the crispy exterior. And then when it's just cool enough to touch, but still really hot, you roll that in cinnamon sugar, 1 part cinnamon to 7 parts sugar, extra fine sugar. And that, my friends, is how you make an apple cider donut.
Angela, when will we be having some apple cider donuts?
I think we're going to have some tomorrow night, Laura.
Don't you wish you were here?
Don't you wish you were here? Angela, I want to put you on the spot just for one moment.
Please do.
Because I understand through what you just told us, like sort of the history of how you evolved to have food on the farm. But I'm pretty sure, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm pretty sure you have a philosophy besides just like, we need to have food here. I'm sure you have a philosophy about food and its connection to humans. And I won't say any more because I don't want to lead the witness. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the bottom line to me is food is love. And I've learned that from my mother, and Mark, my husband, from his mother, my mother-in-law. And I believe that food is love. And so food that comes from the earth and from farms and from farmers that we know is the best. And it's okay to have a treat every once in a while. And that's what this time of year is for.
Beautiful.
Angela Grant Saunders.
Suze, those were some spooky sparks and some really like celebration of autumn sparks.
Charming autumnal sparks. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful community members who contributed such awesomeness to that episode.
Really appreciate it because it fills our Spark files, but also it fills my heart with like these great memories of this community and being together and how we can inspire each other with, you know, the way our own brains work and the ideas that come to us. So it's all very warm. I feel very warm and happy.
I know. You are a warm cup of apple cider.
Oh, thanks, Suze.
And like I said, it's a girl darn cornucopia. So that's it. This episode of the Spark File was made on the lands of the Satsuyaha, the Mohican, the Anishinaabe, and the Algonquin people. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to accomplish your creative goals, you can email us at getcreative@thesparkfile.com or reach us through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
You can follow us on social at The Spark File and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. It really helps other listeners to find us. Also, if you liked this podcast, we hope that you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, you can go haunt yourself.
If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It is your turn to take that spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
and make it.
Maybe it's knocking at your door like a spooky spark.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my Spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my Spark file. I jump into my Spark file. Let's open up the Spark file.